When Uzoma woke up in the early hours of the next morning, she was surprised to find out that Ifeanyi was not beside her on the bed. Immediately she got out of bed, she started hearing Ifeanyi's voice from behind the hut. Uzoma became scared and worried. Who could he be talking to by this time of the night? She thought to herself. Then she went to the window of the hut to eavesdrop on his conversation. But Uzoma's eyes widened in shock at what she saw. She saw Ifeanyi talking to a snake which emerged from his trousers. Uzoma became very terrified as she listened to their discussion. It's either you sacrifice her or you will lose this perfect body of yours and your life as well. Please, be a little more patient. I would get you another woman. I love Uzoma and I don't want to lose her. Your deadline is already past. You have no option left. Uzoma quickly went back to the bed and started dressing up to leave as fast as she could. But as soon as she was done wearing her clothes, Ifeanyi entered the hut, giving her a calm smile. Unknown to him, she had discovered what her fate might be. Why are you leaving so early in the morning? The sky is still dark and the paths are lonely, Ifeanyi said with a romantic voice as he walked closer to her. However, Uzoma was very terrified by what she saw and heard. She tried to pretend as if she was okay, but she couldn't hide her nervousness. I need to help my aunt at the farm. I promised her I'll be home as early as possible, Uzoma stammered, with fear in her eyes. It became very obvious to Ifeanyi that something was wrong. He moved closer to Uzoma and tried to touch her, but Uzoma was visibly trembling. It was then that Ifeanyi realized that Uzoma must have caught him discussing with the snake. Ifeanyi heaved a deep sigh and told her, "I'm sorry." But Uzoma quickly pushed him away and ran towards the entrance of the hut in a bid to escape. However, it was too late for her already. Before she could make it to the door of the hut, the big snake slithered out of Ifeanyi's trousers and went after her, crawling around her legs. Uzoma fell to the ground instantly. She tried to scream, but she realized that she had lost her voice. The snake slithered to her neck, and just when it was about to bite Uzoma, Ifeanyi tried to stop it, but it was stronger than he was. The snake sank its poisonous teeth in Uzoma's neck, giving her 3 strange bite marks. Then it slithered back into Ifeanyi's trousers. Ifeanyi watched in pain as the venom of the snake took hold of Uzoma's body as she gasped away for air and eventually passed. Ifeanyi felt deeply hurt because he loved Uzoma so much, but he didn't have a choice. It was either her life or his. He quickly carried her corpse on his shoulders and took her to the river close to her house. When he was sure that no one was watching, he dumped her corpse in the flowing river so it would take her away, just as he does with his victims. When the sun came up, Ifeanyi took his farming implements and was on his way to the farm when he saw a lot of people gathered at the river bank. He knew instantly that Uzoma's body has been found. To avoid suspicions, Ifeanyi joined the crowd and started asking questions, pretending to be unaware of what had happened to Uzoma. Not again, the villagers cried in pain and agony. Suddenly, the village herbalist showed up with his apprentice. The villagers gave way to the old man who could barely walk on his own. He checked the body of Uzoma and noticed the snake bite on her neck. He shook his head in disappointment and shame once again. Then he instructed some villagers to take her body to his hut. Ifeanyi smiled inwardly to himself, knowing he had escaped being caught once again. But this time, it was a little different because he deeply loved Uzoma. He picked up his farming implements and continued to the farm. As he walked down the path which led to his farmland, he asked himself what he could do to get rid of the snake without ending his own life. The people of Umuazu village could no longer bear the fear they lived with. They gathered in their numbers and protested at the king's palace, demanding a solution to the problem. Ozioma would be the 14th victim in the past 3 months, and the people of Umuazu were living in constant fear because it could be any one of them next. The village herbalist was unable to provide a solution. All he could say was, "This is not a normal occurrence. It is impossible to find a snake with 3 teeth. Since all the victims are women, I would advise every woman in Umuazu village to avoid going out at night." The king had sent all his warriors to go in the forest in search of this strange snake, but they came back with nothing. They visited every house in Umuazu village in search of the strange snake, yet they found nothing, and the deaths continued. Unknown to them that the culprit was Ifeanyi, the most handsome and compassionate man in Umuazu village, who migrated to the village some years back as a farmer. Ifeanyi made a pact with a deity to sacrifice beautiful women in exchange for his handsomeness and immortality. Ifeanyi's fate was sealed many years ago when he was still in the womb of his mother, Ada. Ada went to the stream to fetch some water when she suddenly went into labor. There was no one around, so she sadly had to deliver the child all by herself. She gathered all the strength she could and gave birth to Ifeanyi, but she lost a lot of blood after the delivery. And by the time someone found her, it was already too late for her. She had passed away immediately after she named her baby Ifeanyi. The woman who found her took the baby back to the village and located Ada's husband, Mr. Uche. Mr. Uche felt very heartbroken after getting the news about his wife's death. He was driven with so much pain and grief that he hated Ifeanyi with all his heart. Whenever he looked at his son Ifeanyi, he would be reminded of the death of his beautiful wife. Mr. Uche would often maltreat and treat Ifeanyi with disdain. He would pounce on the child at any slightest provocation and gave Ifeanyi no room for love. One fateful day, Ifeanyi was cooking when Mr. Uche returned from the farm. Mr. Uche was very famished and wanted to eat. When he got to the compound and realized that Ifeanyi was still cooking and that the food was not yet ready, he became very furious and angry and pounced on Ifeanyi and started beating him without mercy. Out of anger, he carried the pot of boiling water on fire and poured it on Ifeanyi's face. Ifeanyi fell to the floor with his face completely damaged. He ran away from the house out of fear for his life and went into the forest with the scar on his face. Ifeanyi walked and walked until he got to a strange village where a hunter found him. The hunter took Ifeanyi in and treated his injuries. He took care of Ifeanyi as his own son. However, after the injuries healed, Ifeanyi was left with a lot of nasty scars on his face and he was ashamed to look at. All the villagers, especially the women, looked at him with irritation because of the scars that made him very ugly. Ifeanyi hated himself because of this and wished he had died from the burn. Any woman he tried to approach would look down on him and ridicule him because of his appearance, and this often made him cry. Some years later, when Ifeanyi was already a man, the hunter fell terribly ill and passed away. Ifeanyi started living in isolation and was very lonely. He had no friends, and none of the villagers wanted to associate themselves with him. When Ifeanyi could no longer bear the pain of loneliness, he made a decision to visit the most powerful herbalist in the village to change his fortune. The tales of Ndidi, the most powerful sorcerer, is a tale well known by everyone, including little children. However, it was also widely rumored that the price to pay for Ndidi's power was too expensive. When Ifeanyi went to see Ndidi, the powerful sorcerer, Ndidi already knew what Ifeanyi came for. He told Ifeanyi, "I can make you handsome with a perfect body. I would give you a smile that no woman on earth could resist. But there is a price to be paid for such a gift. Wise one, I am ready to do whatever it takes to change my fate. I am willing to do whatever it takes to be handsome and be every woman's desire." The powerful herbalist laughed hysterically at Ifeanyi's determination. He picked up his cowries and made some incantations and told Ifeanyi, "For you to be as handsome as you wish to be, you would have to merge with a serpent. And every 3 weeks, you are expected to sacrifice a young, beautiful maiden to the deities. Her beauty will be used to renew yours. If you can do this, then you would never grow old and you will always be handsome." Ifeanyi became shocked at the words of the herbalist. He was willing to do anything to be admired by all the women, but he wasn't capable of taking anyone's life. "Great one, is there no other way?" Ifeanyi asked Ndidi. Ndidi took a deep breath, made some more incantations, then he told Ifeanyi that that was the only way. The serpent would remain hidden until it is time for you to perform the sacrifice. The snake would have to replace your manhood. All you need to do is sing a special song I would teach you, and the snake would reveal itself. The snake has a life of its own, so if you fail to give it your sacrifice timely, it would reveal itself without your approval and take the life of any woman it has access to. Ifeanyi thought deeply and hard. He wanted to back down, but after recollecting his experiences with all the maidens in the village, he decided to go ahead with the rituals. "All women deserve to die for the way they treated me," Ifeanyi convinced himself. The herbalist gave Ifeanyi a strong herb, which caused him to fall into a deep sleep. By the time he woke up, the rituals had been carried out already. Ifeanyi looked at himself in the mirror inside the herbalist's hut and he couldn't recognize himself anymore. He was so handsome, tall and well built. He became very happy, but he knew he had to move to another village where no one knew him. But before he left the hut, Ndidi told him, "Your manhood is another entity, and it would remind you whenever it is time to sacrifice a beautiful maiden. It must be your only friend. No one else must hear or know of this except you, and anyone who sees the serpent in his true form must die." Ifeanyi left the village he was in and relocated to the village of Umuazu and started living life there as a small farmer. However, things were different for Ifeanyi because he was very handsome and sexy. Unlike the previous village where everyone avoided and disliked him, the women in Umuazu village and the people there were mesmerized by Ifeanyi's appearance. His smile was so beautiful that it captured the heart of women in Umuazu, both married and single. The women freely threw themselves at Ifeanyi, making it very easy for him to renew the rituals, just as Ndidi had previously told him. However, Ifeanyi had a rule. Before he killed any woman, he would come to them in his previous form with the scars and ugly appearance. If they looked at him with hate and irritation, he would return to them the second time in his new form, looking handsome and enticing, before he lured them into his hut to sleep with them and kill them for the ritual. Any woman that responded to him with love and compassion, despite his nasty appearance, would be spared, while the ones that looked at him with disgust became his victim. 3 weeks after Ifeanyi started living in Uma's village, the strange deaths started. But no one suspected Ifeanyi because he had a very gentle and compassionate personality. He would often help the older and elderly men and women in the village. He was also very benevolent and generous to the poor and needy, so no one suspected that Ifeanyi would be behind the deaths. Also, the cause of the strange death was said to be a strange snake, so no one had the idea that a human was behind the deaths. Ifeanyi continued in his new way of life, sacrificing a woman every 3 weeks, just as the herbalist told him. All the women he met with his ugly face hated and despised him, so none of them escaped his fury and wrath. Until one day, he met a very beautiful lady called Ozioma. Ozioma was a beautiful and compassionate lady who recently moved to the village. Ifeanyi decided to test Ozioma, so he came to her one night in his old form, and to his greatest surprise, Ozioma didn't treat him with hate. She talked to him casually and treated him like a normal human being. Ozioma discussed with him without minding the scars on his face, and this touched Ifeanyi's heart deeply, so he decided not to harm Ozioma because he had fallen in love with her. The presence of Ozioma in Ifeanyi's life made him very different. Time went by very fast, and Ifeanyi forgot about the sacrifice he was to make every 3 weeks. 1 month later, Ozioma visited Ifeanyi at home and offered to spend the night. Ifeanyi was very happy because he loved her so much. He completely forgot about his covenant with Ndidi. In the early hours of the next morning, Ifeanyi felt the urge to use the restroom, but when he went behind the hut to ease himself, his manhood transformed into the snake and started talking to him. It's been 4 weeks already. You need to sacrifice another beautiful maiden, or you'd lose your handsomeness and maybe your life too. As Ifeanyi was trying to negotiate with the snake, Ozioma woke up and had him talking behind the hut. When she went to the window of the hut, she was shocked to see Ifeanyi talking to a snake which erupted from his trousers. She quickly dressed up and tried to leave, but Ifeanyi caught her midway. He sensed Ozioma must have caught him talking to the snake because of the way she was feeling nervous, so he decided he had no choice but to sacrifice her, because he would die if she tells anyone about what she saw. However, what Ifeanyi did not know was that Ozioma wasn't a mere human being just like his other victims. She was a spiritual being from the river who came to Umuazu village and pretended to be a human. She was invited by the king of Umuazu village to help him fish out the culprits behind the strange deaths happening in the village. After Ozioma's body was discovered, she was taken to the hut of the herbalist. Everyone believed that she was dead, including Ifeanyi. But 3 days later, she came back to life. Ozioma became very enraged. She loved Ifeanyi so much and was disappointed to realize that he was the culprit they had been searching for. Ozioma went back to the river and took on the form of another beautiful maiden. When she returned to Omar's village, no one knew who she was, but she was very beautiful. The most beautiful in all of Omar's village, and all men wanted her to be theirs. Ifeanyi was also enticed by her beauty once again, so he started making advances towards her. Ozioma wasted no time in accepting Ifeanyi's advances, and she quickly agreed with Ifeanyi when he asked her to visit him in the middle of the night. Ozioma visited Ifeanyi on that fateful night, and he was very happy and glad that he had finally gotten the most beautiful woman in his hut. However, when it was midnight, Ifeanyi woke up as usual with the aim of sacrificing Ozioma like the other women. But unknown to him, that would be his last attempt. Ifeanyi did the strange song that Ndidi taught him, and his manhood transformed into a snake and slithered towards Ozioma, who pretended to be fast asleep. Immediately the snake opened its mouth to bite Ozioma. Ozioma grabbed its neck instantly. Ifeanyi became very shocked because he felt Ozioma was fast asleep, but there was nothing he could do because he shared the same body with the snake. As Ozioma squeezed the neck of the snake harder, Ifeanyi held his neck as well, unable to breathe. Ozioma suddenly brought out a knife, which she hid beside her, and sliced off the neck of the snake and threw it on the floor. Ifeanyi started gasping for air and fell to the ground. As he was trying to breathe, Ozioma transformed back into the lady which Ifeanyi knew. When Ifeanyi saw her, Tears flowed freely from his eyes because he deeply loved Ozioma and he had to kill her because he had no choice. However, he couldn't say a word until he passed away. The next morning, Ozioma led the villagers to Ifeanyi's hut to see him for what he truly was. The handsome form which the herbalist gave him was no more, and everyone saw him for what and who he truly was, with his manhood which was still a snake. The villagers thanked Ozioma for her help and threw Ifeanyi's corpse into the evil forest for the animals to feed on. The moral lesson of this story reminds us that no matter how desperate we are in life, we should never meet the devil for assistance, because the end is always more difficult than the start. Do not judge a book by its cover. Everyone assumed Ifeanyi was a good person because of his appearance, so they failed to see what he truly was. It is not wise to judge the world because of the actions of the majority. There will always be good people no matter how corrupt the world may be.